Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we're going to be working on the 2006. It's a Nissan Altima, but not just the Altima, but a lot of cars have this problem. You get in the car, you turn the steering wheel, and the steering wheel is fairly loose. It gets to a point where you'll turn it 20, 30 degrees and it gets real tight. Then you'll turn it and it loosens up, and as you're turning it, you'll feel like it binds a little bit. This guy was told by another shop that he needed a new rack and pinion. It's not the rack and pinion. I wanted to show you how I isolated what the problem is and how we're going to correct it. It's not going to be a cheap repair, but it is going to take care of the problem. So first thing we're going to do is, before we do anything, we want to isolate where the problem is. So what we did is we come along here, we disconnected the tie rod ends from the steering knuckle, and now when we turn the wheel, the wheel turns nice and freely. There's no binding in the wheel at all, so we know that the strut and the bearing plate is not frozen. We know that for a fact. We came around to the other side, and we did the exact same thing on the other side too, the exact same procedure. We disconnected the tie rod end, and as we can see, this turns nice and freely, no binding whatsoever. I can get up underneath here, and I can turn the wheel inside the car, and it binds up. It turns a little bit and it locks, turns a little bit and it locks. So what I did is I went underneath the dashboard and disconnected the steering coupling, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay. I just want to point out that when it comes to the stiffness of the steering wheel, and as you're driving the vehicle and you feel it as you're turning, you feel it like binding and getting loose, binding and getting loose. Don't always assume that it's going to be the rack and pinion that's going to be the problem. It could be a lot of other things that can cause that. In this particular case here, this guy really went for $800 or $1,000 rack and pinion, only to find out that the problem was still bending. So make sure you disconnect your tie rod ends and rule out the struts or the bearing plates are not sticking, and that possibly the ball joint itself is not rusted, causing an issue for you. Once you confirm that everything in the wheel is turning properly, then you go in and you'll check your steering coupling, as I'm going to point out to you. It's actually a very common problem that the coupling freezes in certain directions. But don't forget, check everything before you go and you condemn the rack as being no good. Now, obviously, once you disconnect the tie rod end, if you take the tie rod end and you disconnect it from the rack, from the steering knuckle, and the knuckle itself is tight to turn, then obviously you know that the problem is not going to be in the rack and pinion or the coupling. That the problem is going to be in the strut bearing plate, the bearing plate on top of the strut, or it's going to be in the ball joint. So make sure you check it thoroughly before you proceed to the next step. You take your time and just get through it step by step. You'll isolate the problem and be able to correct it the first time without having to change multiple parts. Okay, this is where the steering coupling is located, right up inside here. This piece right here, you can see the new one right in here. You already replaced it. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to take out that bolt right there, remove that bolt. We're going to go in here with the chisel and separate this a little bit, and then just push this up and out of the way. And I'll show you inside the car what you're going to do inside there. But this is the piece that was no good. This is the steering coupling right here, and as you can see, this way here, it turns nice and freely. This way, it doesn't bend at all. So what happens when you turn the steering wheel, and this is tilted like that, it turns nice and freely, but when it needs to turn the other direction here, it doesn't turn properly, and that's what gives you that binding feeling inside the car. Alright, so basically what we're going to do, this is the bottom part. You just disconnected this. Up in the top, you disconnected the bolt there, and then we pull this out through the car itself. But I'll show you inside and show you how it's done. Okay, this is what it looks like inside the car. Obviously, this is your steering column coming down here. That's your coupling right there. And basically, you're going to take out that bolt right there, and we're going to pull that coupling down. There's 3 bolts underneath the carpet that you have to remove, and the whole assembly pulls up and out, and you replace it with the new one. Alright, you have any questions, any comments, you drop me a line. Be more than happy to talk to you about anything. And like always, see you on the next one. Okay, after the repair, we're going to road test it and make sure everything is okay, but it feels perfect. Another problem that they were having is when they drove this car and they went around the corner. As they went around the corner, the steering wheel would not return to the center position, so they wind up having to fight it through a turn to get it to go straight again. And what they would do is they would turn the wheel and it would just stick in that one position. They'd have to pull it hard to get it to go back to the straight ahead position or neutral position. So I'll just take it for a spin around the block and let's see what happens here. But I can tell by feeling the wheel now, it's absolutely perfect. The customer's going to be extremely happy. They didn't have to change the rack and pinion on this thing. All right, here we go. Perfect. Right back to the neutral position where it's supposed to without any kind of a problem. So we're going to just make a couple of turns just to make sure. And we'll make sure it's all right. Perfect, straightens right out by itself. All right, that's it. We're all set. Going to give it back to the customer and have another satisfied customer and another well-done job. All right, thanks again. See you guys on the next one.